365 blank pages on which to write the story of our life, and it is up to us to do that. So we should look forward to this new year with hope and supernatural optimism, knowing that God will be with us through the ups and the downs, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and that His grace will always support us, and that this year will be a success if only we grow just a little bit closer to Him. And as it is a custom of many people to make resolutions at the beginning of a new year, one suggestion from a priest that was a long time ago, Monsignor Ronald Knox, he said that you should think about, if this was your last year to live, what would you do? And he said, and do that. Make that your resolution. Now, we're not talking about quitting your job and moving somewhere warm, as nice as that might be. We're talking about making decisions that are really going to change your life and impact you for the better. And on this feast of the Epiphany, we can look to the example of the wise men, the Magi, for their example of promptness, eagerness, and perseverance, right? They see the star, they leave immediately, take that long road with many difficulties and dangers, and then the star goes dark, and they have to ask for directions, and then eventually they make it to their place alone. They finishing the journey, and so they show us that example of perseverance in our faith, in their journey of our faith, and their eagerness. So we should be like them. And we can contrast that response of the Magi with the response of Herod and the Jewish leaders. Herod was full of hatred and pride and fear. He was a petty tyrant who used violence to maintain his power. And so when he heard about a newborn king, his little heart was eaten up by fear, which is so pathetic because we think about, was a newborn king, an infant, going to raise up an army and overthrow King Herod? It just sounds so utterly ridiculous. Yet he was so afraid that he decided to plot murder against Jesus. And he did so in a very deceitful and lying way. The chief priests and the scribes, on the other hand, are indifferent to the message of the Magi. It is almost inconceivable. They tell the Magi the Messiah is to be born in Bethlehem, but they don't even budge themselves to go and see if he is truly there. They wait at home and wait for the Savior to come to them. And Bethlehem is not very far from Jerusalem. And later, when Jesus did come to them, they didn't receive him because he was poor and humble. Instead, they persecuted him and nailed him to a cross. So these are the attitudes of the Magi versus the attitudes of Herod and the Jewish leaders. And we have the same attitudes today with us. First is the one of pride and hatred and fear toward Jesus. We want to be the center of the world. We want to define our own meaning of existence. We don't want someone else to be the Lord of our life. We want to be the Lord of our own life. And this is so incompatible with the message of the Christian gospel. And also, if we love evil, then whether we know it or not, we will have a certain aversion towards God, because he is the one that is contrary to all that we choose to do that is wrong. But the second attitude is much more pervasive and a problem today, and that is indifference. It used to be many, many years ago that the world was divided between those who know and those who don't know, and today it's divided between those who care and those who don't care, because many people just shrug their shoulders and say, oh well, what does it mean to me? And this is really hard to comprehend if we have the eyes of faith, because to know that there is life after death and that we will either spend an eternity of happiness or an eternity of sorrow and not do anything about that is really foolish. Think about that. We profess to believe that there is eternity, an eternity of sorrow, an eternity of joy, and if we don't do anything, that either means we don't believe it or we are very foolish. Yet that is what many people do. So we have to adopt the attitude of the Magi and not be like Herod or the Jewish leaders, so that we have humility instead of pride, love instead of hatred, courage instead of fear, eagerness instead of indifference. and perseverance on our journey, even when it's difficult. Because if we press onward, following the star of faith through the nighttime of this life, we will come to Jesus in the arms of his mother, and the reward will be worth all the effort, as it was for the Magi. And what can we do to change the attitudes of others, especially the attitude of those who are indifferent? Well, for the most part, it's not going to happen by using certain methods or making certain arguments. It won't happen because we are better at advertising or that we have some combination of words that are going to convince somebody. It will happen when God gives grace to them and they receive it. Like the Magi, we can imagine that when they were looking in the stars at night and they saw the star that led to Bethlehem, that there were many others that also saw that star, but only the three were the ones that followed. And so it is that God gives the grace, but we have to respond to it. And so we have to do what Our Lady asked us to do at Fatima, which she told the children that they need to pray and do penance for sinners. That is the only thing that will melt the ice of indifference in the hearts of people and fill these pews with those who adore Jesus as the Magi did. So we have to pray and do penance. And here at the beginning of a new year, I will once again suggest the praying of the Holy Rosary and trying to do it every day. So if you haven't got into that practice, maybe this is the year to start that. And you don't have to start the full thing. Maybe you can start with one decade during this month or the next month and then grow from there. And if that is even difficult for you to pray it and to focus, there are things that can help. And one suggestion that I have today is a podcast that comes out every day. It's called the Holy Family School of Faith Rosary Meditation. And every day it's a little bit different. It's about 25 minutes long. You can download it on your phone, listen to it, and it will really enrich your faith. It comes highly recommended from a priest friend of mine. Every time I go to see him, he makes me pray along with him. And so I suggest that to you, and imagine if you did that every day for the next year, boy, that would be a good year, and you would make a lot of progress, and it would be a success. And those blank pages that we have to write the story of our life would be filled with something really beautiful. And that's what we should consider to do during these days that come.